Hello everybody and welcome back to the multiplayer project where I'm gonna be very honest. This was not what I was intending on doing today. I was intending on doing a pretty code heavy day wherein we finally do some proper latency work, but everything was just going horribly terribly wrong. Nothing was working correctly. It's just not my day. I ended up throwing away about, what time is it? About 2:30. I ended up throwing away about 4 hours of work and just reverting back to this and just making a small code change. And I have nothing else prepared and no idea of what to do. So I'm just going to go ahead and say this is kind of a bad day. And we're going to just go through that little bit of a code change. And then we are also going to do a little bit of work on our first tile set. Just so that I can relax and get away from coding for a little bit, I think. So, what we need to do first is... Did I actually change anything at all in NetManager? No, I did not. I don't know why I have that open. I did make a very small change in Entity, but I think we need to go over to the server here. Yes, because this change here, this number can in fact be negative. And that causes a bit of an issue where if you issue repeated movement commands, you start going backwards rather quickly. That is obviously not intended behavior, and so we're going to change this ever so slightly. We're going to change this cast, take that away from being there. We're going to make this be an integer, and we are going to cast this over to an int. And then we're going to say math.abs. Note that's not mathf, we're using the double precision math here. And then we're going to divide that there by GameManager.GameSpeed, and that can just go ahead and be an integer. So we're going to do that to change our latency calculation, and that should bring that back to its relatively functional state. Wonderful. That's the only thing that we're going to change in the server. Now, before we do a change in the client, I want to just do a quick demonstration here to show exactly what we're trying to fix now. So we'll just go ahead and connect to the server. We'll wait for that sweet handshake. I thought about changing... That was actually one of the things I was planning on doing, was changing our encryption library this episode. But it ended up not happening. So we'll just log in here, and we'll issue a movement command. We'll issue another one. You can see how we have that slight teleport right there at the beginning. And if we just do this, you can see we do a fair amount of jumping around. We are going to fix that today via interpolation. So, to some degree, with us having the two numbers that are often in disagreement, there's not a lot that we can do to make this actually go away and have it always represent exactly the correct number on both client and server. That's just something that's not exactly possible for various reasons having to do with complications of latency and floating point calculations and all of these different things. This is just something that is always going to be a little bit jumpy, but it doesn't have to look this way to the player. What happens on the server is what's authoritative. What happens on the client just has to look good and be approximately correct, close enough to correct that the player won't notice if it's a little off. Right now, this is a little too correct, almost. And so I want to change this. So let's go ahead and hop into our channel MMO. We do not need to have our server running. We can turn that back off. And we are going to pull open the sandbox file here. There we go. This is a very simple change. The only thing that we need to do is change entity, and in fact, we don't need any of these open. I'm just going to go ahead and close those. Wonderful. We don't need any of those right now. Okay, so in terms of our entity here, the only thing that we actually have to change is this bit right here. We're going to simplify this. We're going to get rid of this transform.position equals position call, and we're going to say that this projection is a vector3 new position, equivalent to this. Wonderful. we're going to leave our latency calculation exactly the same for right now. We might change that a little bit later on, but we're actually going to remove the time.delta time call here as well. That is not necessary because we don't need to make that frame precision. So this is what we're going to get, is our new position. Now, we're not setting that to anything right now, but now we have our projected position, and we have our projected server position. We have our actual position from the server, our last known position, which is our position, and we have our expected position, our current projection, which is our transform.position. Well, I'm not sure how much we actually care about the server position. Let me think here. Yeah, I mean, we obviously do care about the server position, but we're going to go ahead and do transform.position. We're going to set this equal to, and this should actually be project not transform.position, but rather position to desired position. Excellent. This may need to be expected desired position. We'll test that in a moment. I'm deviating a little bit already, and I've already typoed this. Wonderful. It's just that kind of a day. And we're going to do vector3.lerp. We are going to lerp between transform.position, which is our projected expected position, and we're going to go to new position, which is our current, our like most up-to-date projection. And we're going to do this at 8f times time.delta time. So it would take 1/8 of a second to do this. Actually, I'm going to try this on 5f times time.delta time. So 1/5 of a second. On 8f, it actually felt pretty good. No, I'm going to leave it at 8f. That felt good. And so the only difference that we have here is the previous project used expected desired position here. Yeah. And this is if expected time is less than last time that we do this. Which I think is correct. Let's see how this feels with the desired position. Okay, so let's fire up the server. I'm not exactly sure what result this is going to give us with the desired position, but that is just a little bit more server authoritative there. So the new position is the projection of where the server should be right now. So let's get this fired up. And then the transform.position will be a lerp between our current projection and that new projection. So if we log in here, that is buttery smooth. Perfect. That's very nice. Let's try bumping that up to 500 ping. And here's the kicker. At 500 ping, it's buttery smooth. Glorious. This is still server authoritative, but, I mean, at least with our input, right? Like, what's happening on the server is going to be a different story, but with our input, I cannot tell that we are currently at 500 ping. That is wonderful. Yep, I like that a lot. Okay, so with that being done, let's hop back into our, let's get rid of that. Let's hop back into our client here, and I just want to check here, position and desired position. Yeah, so this new position here is fully server authoritative, because position and desired position both come from the server. Position and desired position. And then this here just interpolates between our latest projection and this new projection from the server, just to smooth that jump out a little bit. And that feels really good. That feels amazing, actually. Like I said, I cannot tell the difference between 500 ping and 0 ping, which is exactly the way we want that to be. So that's kind of the final bit of our latency compensation that we're going to work on for now. Now, keep in mind this is just input latency compensation. This doesn't have anything to do with things that are happening on the server, like combat calculations. So that is definitely something to consider. For now, though, let's just take a bit of a break from the coding and do something in Blender. This is just a completely brand new scene, and we're just going to delete everything there. Wonderful. You can see I've got my screencast keys on here so that you can see what I'm actually doing. But we're going to just go ahead and add ourselves a mesh plane. Wonderful. And we are going to be making our first tile set here. And we're going to make a couple of components, but this is going to be very, very basic. I'm not going to put too much effort into any of these. So this plane would be named tile base. So that is our very first thing. Excellent. Now that's not very interesting, is it? Let's duplicate that, and let's move this over to be about right... Actually, let's move it over about 3 units, so there's 1 unit in between. Excellent. And let's go ahead and loop cut this right down the center, and then we will switch over to face select, extrude this up something around 1 unit. I feel like that's maybe too high. Maybe bring that down about 0.2 meters. Okay. Excellent. And we're going to leave these sides on here for now. We may remove those a bit later on, but I just want to add a little bit of interest to this little cliff here that we've created. So let's just add in a couple of loop cuts. I'm going to add in 4. And then we're going to just slide these along somewhere around here will be fine. Just bump that one out a little bit. In a little further. And then in something like that. And as long as we don't touch these outside ones, this will always loop. So let's make a couple of variants, because variants of the same tile is something that we want to support. And we will call this tile cliff var 1. And we will call this tile cliff variant 2. To mark variants, let's actually put this on a different axis. So I'm going to move this back 3 and then 3. Excellent. And then we'll just move this to be something rather different. I want to move that along the y-axis. There we go. Well, just have that one arch out like that. And then we'll make one more variant of the cliff. And we will call this variant 3. And this one, we'll have this one swoop inward pretty dramatically. Something kind of like that. That doesn't look particularly natural, I suppose. Let's bring this out a little bit. Something kind of like this. We can even move these like so, and it doesn't really matter as far as our tiling goes. Okay, that feels a little bit more natural. Now, we're still perfectly flat here and here. That's fine. I'm not too concerned about that. Okay, so there's some cliffs there. Now we're going to need a way to get up onto different levels. So we'll take this and move this over 6, and we'll call this tile ramp var 1. Excellent. And I'm just going to go ahead and do a loop cut, if I can find the button. There we go. That was exciting. And we are just going to grab this and bring this up again with an extrusion. We're going to bring this up the same 0.8 that we did previously so that we get to the same height. I'm going to loop cut it like so. And then we're going to scale that along the x-axis up to about 2x. Yeah, that'll do. That'll give us plenty of room for a ramp here. Okay. Now we're just going to take these two, actually specifically this vertice here, and we're going to delete this edge. It's not a vertice, it's an edge. And we are then going to just put in a face right there. And then a triangle there. And a triangle there. Like I said, I'm not putting too much effort into this. We're just trying to get a very, very basic tile set. We'll also create a variant for this, and we'll grab that and move that up 3. And we'll just bring this down a little bit. Try to make it look slightly more natural. As long as we don't move any of those external vertices. I struggled with that word. As long as we don't move any of these external vertices, we should be fine. But I want these to be a little more square. So we'll move with them just along this axis, like so. And then we should probably triangulate these faces as well. I don't like the way this one by default triangulated, so we're going to get rid of these faces, and we're going to manually triangulate it. I want it to be triangulated in pretty much the same way, which in fact would be like this. Yeah, it would be triangulated like that. Excellent. So that gives us a couple of ramp variants. Those ramps feel maybe a little steep, so maybe we should have a long variant as well. So we will just go ahead and do that. I'm just going to grab these vertices and move them back 2 units. And that gets us a long ramp variant. We'll call this one variant 2, and then this one will be ramp long. Okay, so obviously we've already got a couple of things that we're going to need to support in our tile sets, right? We've already got height differentials, we've got the ability to get up with ramps, and we've got double length tiles here. There's at least one more thing that I want to support right now, and for that we're going to just duplicate this and move this over, what is this, like 8, 9, 9. Okay, we're going to duplicate that, and this is going to be our base for decor. So obviously at this current size, things like trees are going to be kind of big. So we'll just add ourselves a circle here. Where did that add? Ah, over there. That's fine. We'll move it over 9 meters, and we will just scale that down a little bit to maybe like 0.5. So this is a much bigger tree than these cliffs are, that's for sure. Let's actually change that scale a little bit more down to about 0.2. We'll bring this up to about, say, 1.5 should be fine, and we're just going to scale this down to 0. This is going to be very basic. I'm not putting much effort into these at all. This is mostly just to support the variations and the various doodads and such. So we're going to remove doubles. That's right, it's in merge by distance now, isn't it? Merge by distance, yep. Okay. So we're going to add ourselves another circle here. And we'll move that over 9, and we'll scale that down to something like 0.5. And this is going to be a very basic pine tree model. So we're going to bring this down to about here. What is this height? Hang on. N. That's the key I'm looking for. There we go. This height is currently 0.5 meters. Yeah, that'll do. So we'll just extrude that up about, say... Let's see, how am I going to do this? Actually, I want to take this up and have it start about right here at about 3 meters up. We'll scale this to 0. And then we'll scale this down to about 0.25, like that. And then we'll extrude that out about 2x. And we'll just bring this down to be something kind of like this. Nope, that is not, in fact, what I want it to do. In fact, what I want it to do is scale down to about 0.5, extrude down about, not 1, about 0.25, and then we'll scale that out again. Yeah, that's more like it. To about 3, and then we'll extrude that again to about 0.5, and then extrude that down about 0.5 is too much, about 0.33. That'll do. And then we'll scale that up by about another 3. And then we'll bring that down again. Negative 0.5. Oops, that was not an extrusion. 0.5. Scale up by 3. Okay. And then we'll just extrude that one more time and do something like this. And then we'll scale that down to 0. Excellent. I don't think that this is quite centered. It doesn't look like it. Actually, we'll just take this down. Actually, it is centered. Yeah, that'll do. So we will then just merge by distance again. Wonderful. So that gives us a really basic tree. And that's one of our doodads that we'll have here. And we'll just move this up here about 3. Wonderful. We'll make a variant of the tree. Actually, we won't. I changed my mind. Instead, we are going to make a simple well, I think. So let's just make ourselves another circle. And we'll grab this, move it 9 and 3. We'll scale this down to be about 1/4 the size of the tile. Something like that should do. We'll extrude that up a little bit. Just give it a little bit of a lip there, 0.025. And then we'll scale this in to be about 0.9. And then about 0.25. 0.9 again. And then we'll just do something kind of like that. Excellent. And then we'll add ourselves a plane. Move that over 9 and 3. Scale it down to be something along the lines of 0.1. Excellent. And we'll position it about here. That's still too big. We'll bring that down to about another 0.25. Yeah, that'll do. And then we'll bring this up to somewhere around 0.5. 0.1 is too much. 0.05? Yeah. And then in the z-axis again by about 0.1. Excellent. Up into face select. Just bring this over. What distance does this need to be? This is currently located at... Actually, let's just take this, Control L to grab everything linked, duplicate it, and then do that just to mirror it. Just completely invert that, and then we will delete these faces. Grab this hole here with Alt-click, and then we will bridge those edge loops. Wonderful. Okay, and now we're going to need a loop cut here, and we'll just extrude this along the y-axis by about 0.1, or rather 1.1, and along the z-axis by about 1.1. We do not want to scale it along the x-axis, but that just gives us this tiny little bit of geometry here that can be used to suggest, like, ropes or something. I mean, we could make this be a circle, but I'm not putting very much effort into this at all. We can come back to this later on. So then I'm going to put in another loop cut here, and I'm just going to scale that down. Something like this. Wonderful. And then we're going to take this face, extrude it down, and then we'll just put like a bucket on here. So we'll just scale that up to be something like this. We'll scale it along the x-axis as well to be about... That might be a little large. Something like that. Okay. And then we're going to just grab it and move it down a little bit to about 0.025, something like that. I would love to put a loop cut in here, but instead we're just going to grab these edges right here. And we will... Actually, I can right-click in 2.8. Subdivide. And realistically, we want to subdivide twice. Excellent. We'll now get rid of all of these faces, but only faces and edges. We want to keep the vertices. Actually, no. We just want to get rid of the faces. We'll keep the vertices for sure. These faces are not necessary, and we will get rid of those. Delete those faces. Wonderful. But we're keeping those edges. Oh, we accidentally deleted those two vertices. Right, of course we did. Let's just do this. We'll put in a face there, and a face there. Excellent. And now we can get rid of these underlying faces. Delete those faces. There we go. And we've got these vertices, which are going to hook up just like this. Let me get properly centered on here so that I can orbit around it with the camera. There we go. Wonderful. And then we're going to get rid of this edge. We do not need it. And we're going to do that all the way around. Excellent. We'll select these vertices. Now, I feel like we're a little wide on the y-axis, so I'm just going to scale that down a little bit. And then we're going to bring this down to something like this. And I want these to be scaled down pretty dramatically as well. Maybe not. Maybe we'll just leave that for now. This is a pretty crappy bucket. But like I said, I'm not putting very much effort into this. This is just to have some art to represent it so that we can start working on some of our tile set concepts. Okay. And from a distance, it honestly doesn't look too bad. It looks a little bad. And we've got a duplicated edge here, of course. So let's just go ahead and delete these vertices here. I'm not in favor of them. So we'll just get rid of these verts. And then we'll connect this in, I think, via this end. And of course, this thing is not currently solid. Oops, that was pretty wrong. Yeah, this thing is not currently solid. Let's make this solid first. We'll delete this face. Okay. So we're just going to grab this entire bucket. I'm going to duplicate it, scale it in on the x-axis here to about 0.9, and on the y-axis to about 0.9. And then we're going to move up this bottom, which is not the correct one. I'm going to go to wireframe so that I can grab hopefully the correct face here. There we go. We'll go back to solid. And then I'm just going to bring this up about 0.01. Okay, so that solidifies this a little bit, and we'll just go ahead and bridge those edge loops. That is not what I wanted it to do. We'll do it manually. Okay, so we'll just do this just to make it a little bit solid here. Wonderful. And then we'll just connect this. Actually, I'm going to put in an edge loop there. We're going to shrink that down to be about like that. There we go. And then we're also going to extrude this down to about 0.9 and then fill in the rest. So we have some solid here. We'll just select that and delete those faces. Excellent. Now we'll grab these interior vertices and connect them like that. And then these exterior vertices and connect them as well. But I'm going to get rid of this face first before I forget to. There we go. Now, I'm not super happy with the actual size of the solidifying here. So I'm going to bring this down a little bit on the x-axis and the y-axis. Actually, the y-axis is pretty much okay. That seems fine to me. Excellent. But I am going to elevate this over here just a little bit so that it looks a bit more like that. Slightly more natural. I mean, this would work a lot better if I was actually putting some effort into it, but I can't be bothered. There'll be time for art later. For right now, we mostly just need a representation to make sure that what we've got appears to work. Okay, so we'll just do something about like that. Okay, super cheap well there. Now you'll notice that these objects, they don't take up the entire area of the tile, right? They more take up almost quadrants. And our quadrants are size units of 1. So we can move this to 8.5 and then move it up half of a unit. We can move this one down 3 units. I guess. I moved it up 3 units? Okay. We'll move it down 3 units and move it over 0.5 and up 0.5. So this is kind of how we're going to do our sizing. These decorations are going to fit into a 1x1 area and would be able to be applied anywhere where there is open space. So for example, this circle, which is actually a tree, would be able to be spawned at 3.5 like that. Easy. And honestly, for the amount of effort I put into it, that doesn't look half bad. I mean, there's no materials or anything, right? And the materials, we're just going to go with a solid color, honestly. That's all it's going to be. So I'm going to delete that tree, and I'm also going to delete this here, and we're going to rename this to Doodad Pine Tree Ver 1. And we'll rename this one to Doodad Well Ver 1. So we'll have things like a Doodad spawn chance and all of these things. And these things will have hitboxes to some degree. And, like, some things would probably be able to fly right through them. But, like, players would pathfind around them. Something along those lines. But you'll notice that each of these tiles is 2x2, and that is for the purpose of the doodads. Now, you might be saying, okay, this is all well and good, but what if I wanted a shoreline? Well, here's the thing. We're going to do this, 3 minus 0.8. And then we're going to move this 2. Voila! We've got a shoreline. I know it's not super great, but it'll have to do for now. This is just to get an idea of how the tile sets are going to function and be put together, and we can always come back and make actual art with actual effort later. This guy is going to throw a wrench into the works. It's effectively going to count as 2 tiles. And if we can support that in a graceful fashion in any direction, we can make arbitrary sized tiles, which will be interesting. For now, though, I'm going to save this into our directory here. I'm going to do that off camera because it's probably going to have a wacky default directory. And I kind of don't want to navigate through my entire file system on camera. But we are going to instead put a cut in here And next episode, I think we're going to work on generating this from the server, representing it in the client, and then after that, we can maybe start thinking about some hitboxes. Until then, though, you can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and I will see you all next time.